PowerPoint is on this.
Okay.
I don't know where you put it in, but
I'll put it.
does
this pull out? Okay.
Yeah, it's an ancient. That's my first thumb drive.
Okay. You got that.
I think that dates from the early 2000s. I think it's about 15
what
years
did I
old.
just do with that? That's not what I wanted to do. So that's it.
You can, yeah, that's it.
Copy that. I'm going to put it on the desktop. So I just clicked on something behind there. I don't know what's going on here. How did I stick that? I generally just let you. Where on earth did that go? what all that was. I could have something up there behind me.
Yeah.
Okay, you got your Zoom meeting going here.
Okay.
So if you want to share screen, it's just this little button right here. So you're going to share screen. Then you're going to say, okay, I want this screen right here to share.
Okay.
Then hit share.
Share.
So you're sharing that. You are sharing this screen. So over here, you'll see
That's the meeting.
that's the meeting over there. So you can go, when you're done with it, just do stop share.
Okay.
And you're back to the meeting. So
Okay.
you're going to have to let people in as they come in. It'll have a little thing up here. So-and-so's in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Click. You've done that before, haven't you? Something along those lines.
Okay.
It should be fairly obvious. So you let them in because it'll ring in or so.
Okay.
You disinfect the mouse.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I came in here like, well, that thing's been handled all whenever.
Yeah. My thing is I've learned not to touch my face, but I agree with you. You're right to be careful. Masks are good because they help keep you from touching your face.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
As I said, just be prepared. I might come running.
sure. We can.
Morning.
Okay, now I've kind of rolled over something on the keyboard, so hit. I'll let you drive the mouse.
Yeah. Okay.
Just hit. You don't want to share right now, so just X out of this up in this corner right now until you get. There you go.
Okay.
So it's already kind of highlighted there on the share screen down there.
Yeah.
And okay, I guess the video is on yours, so.
Okay. It says stop video, so I assume.
It assumes the video's on.
Okay. So but what's funny here is I would think that would be a picture of us, a picture of this room.
You can look at the, where is that on there? Hit the more over here.
Okay.
Okay, there's some sort of put the participants here and see if it gives us. Oops, so see the video's on, there's just not. I think the video is on. If not, there's going to be a way to turn it on down here. You see, I tested the audio and everything was working with it. So we'll hit stop video and just see what. Okay.
Okay. And then just click start. Oh. Start.
There we are.
Oh God.
It's not a. It's not the. It wasn't a software issue, it was a hardware issue.
Yeah. We get so used to software, we forget it's driven by the hardware. The hardware comes first. Yeah.
Make sure you have it before you can do it. So, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm probably going to tune in from my computer. Just so we're not.
Yeah. But again, don't be surprised if I come dashing over there. You
see
me get up and leave the room.
You'll know. You should be able. You should be able to look t-shirts. Are you going to come in here and sit for it?
I was going to go in my office.
Okay.
Do whatever works for you.
I'm going to be on the meeting, and I can add people in as they're coming in, so
Okay.
you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, thank you, Keisha. Appreciate that. So but like I told Hans, if you see me exit the screen, you'll know I'm coming running.
I was showing you how to share a screen on there. It's pretty simple. So
Yes.
And you've already got it up back there, so.
I think I can manage, but again.
He already has his PowerPoint up.
Yes, I've got it loaded on there.
Yeah.
On there, so it's ready to go.
Okay.
We can do our best.
Disinfected the mouse, and we're all.
I don't think anybody gives a damn about this stuff with COVID-19 racing like it is. And
Yeah,
everybody's future is just kind of in doubt.
it is.
But I'll do my best.
I know this camera is new, and on Monday, Alan called me, and he was asking how does it look on my computer, and he kept saying, I'm backwards, and I'm like, well, what I'm looking at, it doesn't look backwards on my computer, but I see what he's saying.
Oh, yeah, it's like
It's
it's mirrored.
Yeah.
Well, I think it does that so you appear where you should be in the room, because if it's not, it does and it doesn't really matter unless you have like text in the back. You've got a sign back there.
Yeah.
It'll be flipped.
Yeah. But now the computer, like if I go in my office and look, he looks like where he
Should be.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it does that because I think it does something in your mind to see you over on the other side.
Yeah.
It's like, why I'm over there, I'm over here.
It's like emulating a mirror. It really knows better. It would be, the image it has is the opposite, but
Yeah.
it does something that, yeah.
Yeah, so it makes it. Because I'm standing, when I was over here, I didn't even think anything of it. Okay, yeah, I'm over here, but yeah, it's backwards. Wait a second. So I don't know if there's a.
I wouldn't even thought about that.
Can you
until
see the
mentioned it.
text on there? Yeah, see, it's
Yeah,
all
backwards.
it's all backwards.
but I'm
I
sure
write
on my
backwards,
screen it shows correctly. Like if I was looking at it like I'm looking like this, and that's what I was telling him. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it looks like to me.
I think that's your iPhone does.
Like the
that too.
selfie mode, and that's what I was saying.
It does. It
Okay.
creates like, well, this is what you're looking. Your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's something in your mind. If it were opposite, you'd be like, why is this thing opposite? Why am I over here? Because you want to. You're moving. Your directions of. So it's like when I reach across, I'm reaching across towards you, but it would be opposite.
But the camera
See how
looks
many-
good.
You had the
I
one
think we may
meeting
have
when
all
nobody
staff.
showed up.
I know. I think we're gonna have all staff and maybe if we're lucky. What? Colleen Carr's pretty good. She's the committee chair. She'll probably be on.
Let me go make sure.
Okay.
I'll take all my disinfecting materials back to
Do that in a minute.
one in there. You won't have to wear your mask and you can talk.
I guess, yeah.
It may work better. So.
Then you get up a little closer.
What's that?
I'm just saying, I just need to get up closer. It's just I don't want to bang my knee on this stupid thing.
It's not the optimal type thing.
No, far from it.
We usually could get all the way to the back end of the table and just be really far from it.
Yeah, yeah. You can't see, you can't make up my expression, so I feel more secure.
I was on that call for I was on there. It's like I'm at home in front of the camera. It's like you're on camera. It's like I can't really scratch my head or I don't need to drink water off camera. So.
Yeah, you notice those things, don't you? You much more than you would.
But I don't think anybody else notices because I was kind of like, yeah, someone's doing this or that. But a lot of people have turned their video off when they weren't active, which they're listening in. You're muted, so like, that's probably the thing to do is turn your video off. And I have like I stuck like a picture, like, or the bio pictures you use for different things, you know, for a conference or whatever.
Yeah.
I stuck that up as my,
that's a good idea.
kind of a screen. There I am, but my video's not on, so you kind of have a little more if you want to check an email or something. You're listening to what's going on, but you don't want to be just staring at the camera like you're actively listening.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lynn.
Hey, Jonathan.
Your tomato plant's still the best I've got. I'm getting a few of my own.
Yeah, so. Jonathan, we just had an ordeal with our cat.
Yeah.
He wasn't eating and his face was a little bit swollen, and we took him to the vet last Friday and the vet gave him fluids and antibiotics, and then he still wasn't right. He was hiding from us, and so we kept him downstairs. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink. We gave him water with a eyedropper. Took him back Monday, and it was my husband who realized. He said, "You know, I bet it's his tooth." Because he had a tooth that was partway broken off years ago. Well, he had an infected tooth, so he was hurting all weekend. I was just kind of disappointed that our vet didn't even look in his mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
So on Monday, they did surgery and removed the tooth, and now he's great.
Good, good.
And we have to give him medicine, which is an ordeal.
Oh, Lord, yeah. We get pill pockets from our vet. That helps a little bit.
What's a pill pocket?
Oh, you get these things. They wrap around the pill, and they're tasty. The kitties like them.
Oh, mine won't usually fall for that. They'll say, "No, there's medicine in there." I ain't falling for it.
Yeah. Getting there. Hey, Keisha. Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Yes. Jonathan, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
Okay.
I want to know, how do I get the PowerPoint going? There's a share screen button. Is that what I push?
Yes, click on the arrow.
Okay. Okay, I'll wait just a second, but I want to get that PowerPoint up. Looks like we've got our group.
I hope a few more people join us.
Okay, you think we ought to wait a minute longer?
Yeah, maybe a minute or so.
Okay.
Brent, I see you've joined us. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yourself?
Good. How's the Venture Center?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Are you
The
not
tech
there
park.
anymore?
Yeah, I know. The tech park's good.
Oh, the tech park's good. Okay.
Yeah. Tech park.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Venture Center's just part of it.
That's right. They're a tenant.
So the tech park is doing okay?
Yeah. We've had some turnover, but we've replaced almost all of them. So, and most of our tenants have hung onto their office, even if they haven't come in.
How's the coffee shop doing?
They've been closed, and they still are closed.
I wondered about that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know. It's hard to get a read on what their next move is.
Yeah, it's hard to sell much coffee when hardly anybody's working downtown.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. We had one of the coffee shops in the River Market closed last week. The ones down there kind of on the east end of the River Market.
Okay, I think we're getting ready. Would you agree with that, Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jonathan. We're going to go ahead and start this meeting. The main purpose of this meeting is going to be to develop some themes, to try to pull together what we've been doing. And I apologize for the Zoom format. I personally don't like it, but we're going to do the best we can. I'm going to start, as I did last time, with a little update on the economy and how COVID is affecting us. Just a few quick slides here. And it's not much different. Lynn, can you hear me? I just want to make sure that the audio is good. Okay.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, thanks. It's not much different from last time. Oh, here, let me go to view because oh, just a second, sorry. Okay. If you look at this, this is a single family construction trend, and this chart is in the Metro Trends newsletter that's about to come out. However, this is slightly updated. It so often happens when we publish something, the day afterwards we get a new data release. And in our case, what happened was the city of Benton finally sent us their building permits. And God bless them, they had a good month in June. And so that pushed up the regional average. And for that reason, if you look here, and this is quarterly from 2015. And if you look here, we had a nice little uptick at the end of 2019, then down a little bit. And I think this was just rainy weather in the first quarter before COVID really hit. But we really haven't been hit that hard. We're down at an index value of about 1.08, which is, in other words, we're trending a little above where we were in the year 2015. So, if you consider what we've had, a pandemic, the local building permit trend has gone down, but not that badly. And now this is single family permits. And the US is actually a little lower than we are. But it's a fair statement that the housing market has not been devastated. In other words, the housing construction market is still moving ahead. And this shows building permits, and this will be in the Metro Trends as a share of last year. And last year was a fairly good year for permits. And as you can see, in all months, we were slightly higher in January, a little lower in February, about the same in March. And then we were down in April and May. So the US average in April was 84% of the previous April. The regional average was 68% of the previous average. I didn't yet have US figures for May, but we were 75% of our previous average for May of 2019. So again, the housing construction market's been hit, but it's not been hit that badly. And the job trend, this is just an update of figures you've already seen. But you can see we've actually had an uptick. We've hit the bottom and started coming back up. Now that said, so we're at about an index value of about 93 compared to where we were. The U.S., we don't yet have June data for our region. We do have June data for the U.S., and it's at about a little over 91, 91.5 index value. So employment's coming back. I think, though, it's fair to say, and obviously this is my interpretation, it's no better than anyone else's, but from what I've been reading and how I've been following trends, my guess is we are not going to have a V-shaped recession. We're going to have an L-shaped recession. The recovery is going to be stunted, and that's because the cases are going up, and there's a clear link between public health and economic trends. And a lot of the shutting down activity is voluntary. It's not really being enforced. You know, it's not the result of government policy. Some of it is. But I suspect we'll continue seeing some climb in employment, but we're not going to see a fast recovery. Eventually, you know, in a year, 9 months, a year, 2 years, we're going to see an economic boom as everything starts to come back, but we're not there yet. Unemployment, same thing. Local unemployment, not as bad as the national average at its peak, down a little bit in May. Probably when the June figures come in, they'll be about the same or slightly down. The U.S. was down. But again, experts are beginning to wonder because in July, the pandemic numbers are going up again. So we don't yet know how that will affect unemployment, but it doesn't look good. And then just a few other tidbits. Well, let me go back. Just want you to know, again, the Metro Trends newsletter is complete. It will be posted on our website and mailed out probably next week. Overall, U.S. housing values are up. They've not dropped as bad as they did in the Great Recession. Another thing to be aware of is the prospect for commercial real estate is very turbulent. I mean, if you look at the western end of the McCain Mall, it's empty. It's just, you know, just empty. And there are a lot of other cases of retail establishments that have been a part of our lives that probably are either gone or they're going to have to reestablish. And I suspect that what you have seen, what happened to the University Mall, may happen elsewhere, where you're going to see a downscaling of retail and an upscaling of residential. And you know, there's going to have to be some repositioning. I think there are opportunities for real estate professionals and developers who can seize the moment and recognize what's happening. But that said, it's a big change, and nobody completely knows what's going to happen. Okay. And so I want to move to some themes. And I want to just go ahead, since I've got the screen up, I'm going to go ahead and just plow through. And what I want to do this time is open up the discussion and see, I'm going to give you a list of about several themes, about 5 themes that we've been able to distill from what we've heard from this group. And I want you to react to them. And, you know, the field is completely open. Agree, disagree. You think we've left something out, or if you think there's something in there that doesn't belong there, you know, let us know. But we're trying to firm this up and get something. So
Jonathan,
here,
I have a question.
go ahead.
And maybe you can explain this because I was a little unclear. To me, the word themes is kind of a new term that we're using. And let me know if I'm not saying this correctly. As I understand it, these themes, with y'all's input, we're going to come up with goals based on those themes and action steps for the long-range plan that's coming up. Is that correct, Jonathan?
That makes sense to me, Lynn. I'm doing this for the first time, but
so that might be kind of a way to think about it. These are broader themes that we're going to, with y'all's assistance, narrow down to actual goals that will go in this long-range plan.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, I'm done.
And I guess I just, you know, they're on the screen in front of you. I guess we can revisit them if we need to. But walkable, livable neighborhoods seem to be vital for economic vitality. That more or less was agreed upon. Good public transportation is essential. I heard that several times. I think others heard it. home-based work is growing, and obviously the COVID-19 thing has increased that trend, if anything. And I can tell you, I'm working on a research subcommittee at the national level, and they're definitely taking a close look at the change in home-based work, because we're seeing potentially major changes in travel trends. And it may not change completely back even when the crisis is over. We had a lot of discussion about long distance commuting, and the simple fact is, whether you think people should be driving long distance or you don't, it's a reality in Central Arkansas. I can tell you we have an unusually large commute shed and a lot of long distance commuting. So I mean, that it just is reality. And then finally, I got a lot of information that the provision of transportation infrastructure, what we do in terms of where we make investments and how we make them, needs to be integrated with economic development causes. And I think to some degree that there's been a lack of connection between the two. And I felt from the group a sense that we need to improve that connection. So for that, I'll just open up the meeting at that point and see what people think. Is there any theme someone thinks needs to be added?
Hey, I'll jump in here. Hey, the good transportation, public transportation is essential theme. I think that I would maybe rephrase that to investment in public transportation is essential, because honestly, for metrics that we use at the transit agency compared to other transit agencies across the country, we are actually doing good service as far as this service that we're able to provide. That, could it be better? Of course. What you mean by good transportation, I think, if you're not in this agency, is that you want it to be more frequent. You want it to be expanded. You want it to be longer hours per day. You want more weekend service. You want new routes to new places. All of that. Agree. But that is absolutely based on the financial investment that this community wants to spend on public transit. And since we're the Economic Vitality Committee, I feel like that is something that needs to be qualified in that theme.
Makes sense. Any reactions? Any other points of view?
Jonathan, can you display those again?
Sure. Where is it? Oh. And again, I don't want to make it sound like, this is, we're thundering down from on high. This is what we have. I'm just trying to open up the field to discussion. And I'm sorry that I think the Zoom format makes it harder to have a casual discussion. But please, your input is very welcome.
Well, Jonathan, this is Becca again. Could you maybe explain a little bit more the last theme? Are you talking about, like, you want more commentary from this committee about places in our community, in our region, that need more thought of specific types of transportation and infrastructure? For example, like the port or the airport or something like that. Is that where you're going with this?
Becca, let me join. This is Casey, so I'm just here with Jonathan, and I think it is appropriate to identify those particular areas. When I'm looking at our transportation plan, there's two questions that I ask myself: is, can we address that through transportation design or facilities? And then the second question is, can we change it through subdivision regulations and zoning regulations? And if the answer to either one of those questions is yes, then it is a fully appropriate for our discussion, and that's what we want you to identify. If the answer is no to that we can address that issue through transportation facility design, or we can't address it through zoning and subdivision regulations, it's still an important consideration. We still want you to identify it, but in that case, we're actually we'll put it off in a separate area and saying additional issues for consideration. And we'll look at those maybe as part of Metro Trends or some other documents, but for the transportation plan, that is the key thing. And since we're looking at economic development, if economic development in the port is being deterred due to transportation facilities, whether that's a lack of bus facilities, transit facilities, whether it's a lack of roadway facilities, whether it's another transportation related consideration, that is fully appropriate for this committee to bring up, and that becomes a part of our plan. So I would encourage you, if you think about this committee and think about recommendations and themes that will go into our plan, think about it in that way: is can we address this concern through the design or construction of transportation facilities, or with that land use connection? I hope that makes a little bit.
Yeah, that really helped. I would just add to that then, my comment is that I see a real need for, in our major healthcare centers here, some more infrastructure for ride hailing and just pick up drop off, especially when you consider the aging population here in Central Arkansas. This has been a theme that's come up time and time again with what we do, and that infrastructure just isn't there. And so like that should be maybe worked into development requirements, you know, down to the jurisdiction level when somebody wants to build a new clinic or whatever to serve people, to keep that in mind.
Thanks, Becca. Yeah, that's exactly right.
That can play into last mile issues.
Yes, and I want to agree with that and point out that I think evidence and studies about the advent of Uber and Lyft and so forth say that we're going to have more need for sort of pick up and drop off places, and that we're going to see changes in the landscape so that, you know, the parking lots may matter less and the pick up and drop off points will matter more. Yeah.
Steve, that's a great comment about last mile. So could you expand upon that from maybe, I don't say a theme standpoint, but what are specific concerns and considerations from a last mile standpoint that we ought to be incorporating into our plan?
I just think that, you know, especially like out at we bring up the Riverport, the ongoing projects that are out there, and for certain the new projects that those will bring in. I mean, you're going to have thousands of people that, you know, can get to a certain point, but then may have to, you know, got to consider getting them destination. Now, whether that's somebody like Amazon or CG or somebody like that running their own corporate shuttle or a company bus from, you know, a bus drop off or a metro drop off point, and then taking them to the building itself. That's something you got to consider, because you're going to have to make that, company's going to make that more attractive. Yeah, we'll get you to a certain point, but we can't get you to the front door. So I think you're going to have to see more companies consider the fact that they need to possibly purchase, you know, a minimum of like 20 passenger shuttle buses to help accommodate. I remember when UAMS used to, I guess they still do, run their own shuttle buses, their full-size buses from War Memorial parking lot and the parking lot that they built where Dickie Stevens, where the old ballpark used to be. So at least they're considering their employees and not making them walk that, you know, that's a hike up that hill at UAMS. But something like, more things like that are going to have to be considered. That's just going to be part of it. If you want to make public transportation something that's going to be viable for the average person, and I'm going to tell you right now, I rode the bus for a year when my wife was in college back in what everybody likes to call their salad days. Now the bus got me pretty darn close to the state capitol, but I, you know, if it was raining, I didn't bring an umbrella. That was just my problem. So I know where I speak because I rode the bus for a while. And so that's just part of it. The last mile is going to be huge. And that's just going to be in people's considerations as to where they want to work or if they'll even apply for a job. Right. At a certain location. If they don't know I can only get to here. So what I want to work a mile away, even though that might be a little bit better job for me and it would help that business grow, but they're not going to think of that. They're going to think of what's the closest off the bus if they ride the bus.
Thanks, Steve, and see if anybody else has comments on that. That's I think that's a really good point that we need to look at and open up to any discussion on any other items as well. But
Yeah, Jonathan, this is Jamie.
Yes.
I would like to expand a little bit more on that home-based work and growing. And the reason I would like to talk a little bit about that is we've been looking at it in regards to changing some of our land use in certain areas based upon that, knowing from what we've seen, and people have even talked about it here today, regards to just downtown, just people not coming like they were, not working down at the offices, and it's affecting businesses. And we have a large amount of office space that's available even right now downtown that we're not using. And so growth-wise, are we even looking at, and should we be looking at office growing in certain areas when we got office space downtown that is not being utilized? Do we need to make a change in our land use and how we're promoting development in areas, especially out west?
Yeah.
Because of this home-based work growing.
Something I want to point out is that some cities are seeing, even before COVID, they were seeing the advent of more residential activity in places that previously had been office centers. Like downtown Vancouver, British Columbia actually has way more residents now than it does office workers. And people seem to like downtown environments for some of the connections. Now that's probably a little out of vogue right now with the contagion concerns. But I think there's an opportunity to reposition some of this space for residential and maybe some other uses too.
Well, and I'll just say that also kind of getting back to it kind of touches on what Jamie was saying and then what you were saying, Jonathan, about people living downtown again and maybe expanding residential. I think there's also a lot of work to be done on basic pedestrian infrastructure. So we were just talking about first mile, last mile, and UAMS and that campus and how there's an incline there. But I live in Hillcrest right across from UAMS, and I see students who live in Hillcrest walking over all the time to the campus, and they have no shade. So like something as simple as like a shade tree, like a mass project across the city for major corridors where we know people are walking a lot, and identifying which streets in the community should get shade trees first. That's something I'd love to see. And then the Markham Street road diet, like with the bike lanes that are not just for recreational bikers, but people who want to actually cycle to work and stuff. I think that's super important as well.
Thank you. My wife calls me a shade-seeking animal because whenever we're out walking, I zigzag very pronouncedly to find shade. So you're preaching to the choir on that one.
hey, Buckley, what is the chamber's thoughts on some of this in terms of development potential and transportation changes? I guess I'll restate the question. Have there been changes in the chamber's emphasis related to COVID and potentially how transportation facilities are built throughout the region to support that economic growth? And not just you, but all of our economic development members, I hear a similar response.
So we haven't really dug into, I guess, from if you're talking about from the standpoint of folks commuting versus working from home and so forth, and how that changes. We haven't really dug into that. One of the interesting things, we just had our board meeting via Zoom this morning, and the economic development report was that we're actually busier right now than we were at this point in time last year when it comes to the number of projects that are either underway currently, Amazon and a couple of others out at the port, as well as those that are in the pipeline that we think are going to come to fruition that will be going to the port. So the transportation needs from a port infrastructure standpoint have only grown. And, we a couple of weeks ago had the big announcement of the infrastructure improvements that are being made to Zuber Road because of Amazon, because of CZ. Our focus has just been on improving the existing infrastructure at the port to accommodate what's coming in the immediate future, and then what we anticipate will be coming down the road. We haven't really got into a downtown infrastructure or neighborhood infrastructure standpoint and how.
I guess that's another question. Do you see areas, the port continues to come up. I think it's very clearly an area that needs to be looked at to everybody. Are there other areas within the region that lack infrastructure, but you're seeing potential there that we want to look at as part of the planning effort?
Not to my knowledge. Not from a recruitment standpoint.
Well, I'll say, just looking at the economic data, I'm compiling, the new Metro Trends newsletter, and it looks like 2019 was another good year. I mean, I could see some sort of trends accelerating, a lot of investment in building. The building permits hit another record in terms of value, recent record, post-Great Recession record. So, I mean, I think there was beginning to be momentum in the regional economy, and I'm glad to hear that it sounds like it's, still hanging on despite the crisis. Thank you.
Possibilities for incentives for telecommuting. I saw the other day where Barbados is gonna, if you could work from home, they'd love for you to move to Barbados for a year, and they're going to give you incentives to live down there and work from home. That's something to consider, because I think telecommuting is going to be part of the new norm once things get back to whatever normal is going to be. And people are going to do it, I know, in public works here at the county. I've got people that either telecommute every day or every other day. So I've got two people that are able to do the same job. They never cross paths. So if I've got a backup, if somebody gets sick, does that make sense? So I think that in the future, you're going to see a dramatic increase in the way that people work from home. And so could there be some incentives in some communities or some new communities, like, well, if you telecommute and you live here, this is what you expect. Maybe you'll get a break on your POAs or something like that. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but that's going to be something to consider, I think.
Steve, I think that is worth exploring, but I'm just curious to see the sustainability of the communities that have decided to pay people to work remotely from their communities. I think it's more viable to invest in sidewalks and trails and the things that are going to make the communities more attractive as a whole, than shelling out $10,000 or $15,000. I think I've seen one that was $15,000, because if I was in the business of working from home, I'd just say, okay, well, I've got to live here for a year and I'll get $10,000, and then, all right, I'll pack up and go to the next state that has a $15,000 bonus, and then just kind of rotate around. Whereas if it's somewhere that they're interested in living in, and it's affordable, then you're more likely to retain and recruit those folks than by using cash. Although cash is nice, but I just don't know how sustainable it is.
Well, you may have large corporations or large facilities that actually maybe get a credit for reduction in a carbon footprint based on how many people, what percentage of their workforce works from home. So they're not, you're reducing those carbon emissions by those people staying at home instead of driving to work every day. Something like that.
So we're now getting into a little bit of those areas that are kind of on the edge, but I don't want to eliminate those. But one just kind of immediate thought when we start talking about this committee has previously talked about proximity. Proximity has been, I think, a key term in where people live and economic development. And I want to see if other people agree with this general statement. But I'm working from home typically 2 days a week now. My commute's a lot easier in the morning. So proximity to work has become less critical to where I live, yet I'm making decisions about where I live on proximity to other things, recreational opportunities, shopping opportunities. And is that a trend that we think will happen? And I know we have several people from some of the suburban areas that are part of our region, and that could have a pretty profound impact on all of those individuals and that. So is that something that people agree with, that proximity to job is going to be maybe less important as opposed to proximity to other things, or is proximity to job still going to be a major factor in where people choose to live and even the housing that they're picking? Everybody jump in there at one time.
Hey, this is Clint O'Neill from Arkansas Economic Development Commission. I'll jump in with just a couple of quick thoughts on this. I would say, I agree with what's been shared. I think one thing that we've seen through COVID-19 is that gas prices have remained low, and that sort of, helps people's ability to commute further. I think when I agree with all 5 of these themes, I do kind of, think it would be interesting to look at these through the lens of in a way they apply to everybody, but in a way there's a little bit of a distinction between those kind of in the working class, those with more blue collar jobs. There are certainly a lot of jobs in Central Arkansas where people will never work from home. That's just not a reality. And then there are jobs in a category of those that have the luxury of working from home. And so I think that the home-based work category is certainly more relevant, for some than others. I think across the country, we're seeing a little bit of a gravitation away from big cities, whether it be a lot of people stacked on top of one another in buildings, in downtown office buildings, or whether it be a little bit of concern about social unrest. I think that might be a little bit of a theme of whether it be working from home or whether it be companies looking to depart from downtown areas and have more for their office buildings, more suburban offices. I don't know, but I think that's something to kind of watch for. But yeah, I'll just kind of go back to the point of I think there are certain jobs that working from home is not a reality, and for those kind of having that last point, transportation infrastructure that really integrates well with economic development and where the industrial parks are, where the reality of the jobs are, might be interesting to take a look at.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think that's to answer Becca's previous question. That's kind of where I was with the last point, the one about provision of transportation infrastructure integrating with economic development. Because I heard cases from several people saying, they felt like there needed to be a little more connection between decisions that are made somewhat abstractly by transportation planning bodies and then the actual need when a factory wants to locate somewhere or something like that. They're not always connected.
Right.
Well, and I don't see the Air Force representative here today with us, but they even recently commented again on our transit network proposal that's out there right now, that they would like more connection to the region through transit, because they have a lot of people there on their campus and it's huge. It's a big source of industry for us in Central Arkansas, but they have no connection if they don't have a car. And they have a lot of people actually who live on the base who don't have a car. So they're always concerned about that. So outside of the port, there's the Air Force Base, there's the industrial area in Maumelle, and there's also that industrial park over in North Little Rock as well.
Good point, Bethany.
I just want to comment about the density question, because I think Clint did raise a valid point that people are questioning whether anybody's going to want to be in a downtown. You know, there's definitely the value of suburban real estate has gone up in the short term, but I also think that there was some thoughtful articles in The Economist about that, and they pointed out that pandemics do typically have an effect of, you know, making people run to the countryside, but it's temporary, and typically cities come bouncing back. So we just need to remember that. We don't know what's going to happen, but there needs to be perspective. It's not just the pandemic, but then there's going to be an aftermath to the pandemic.
I think placemaking ties a lot into several of these points, but especially when you talk about like people telecommuting. Okay, so they're telecommuting right now, and like what brings people back downtown if they're not working there right now? And I think that there's several things that could, but I think it's all about placemaking. And I do think a more permanent shift that we'll see is more emphasis on really, really nice outdoor spaces, you know, like our parks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be useful. Just, you know, the way I take it is I think I'd like to keep that first line, you know, walkable, livable neighborhoods, but I don't mind working the term placemaking into it somehow, because I think you've got a good point about that. Okay.
Is Gabe Holstrom on the line? Gabe, are you there? I thought I saw Downtown Partnership. I was just going to get his take on things that they've been doing lately and what he sees happening downtown, but I guess he's not there.
What are we considering long distance commuting in Central Arkansas?
Well, it's a broad term, but I mean, I can tell you from the stats that we have, last time I looked, and it's been years, we have an abnormally large share of people coming in, even from outside the metro area, from counties, you know, that are out around the metro area coming in. And I consider that long distance commuting, but it's kind of an amorphous term. I mean, you could refer to anybody who's driving, you know, more than 20, I think the average is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Anyone who's driving more than that, probably it's fair to say long distance commuting. There's probably a tiny share of transit users who do long distance, but probably a great deal less, at least at present.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
That may need to be defined, but that is a point of, we do have a high share of people that are commuting longer distances, and I mean, that's our freedom of our travel.
Okay, well, I don't want, no reason to keep the meeting going longer than necessary if we've kind of reached some conclusions. Does anybody have anything to add?
Jonathan, I just to give an update on kind of where we're headed. First of all, great. I missed the first 10 minutes, but I thought it was a really great conversation, and we're headed in the right direction. I like to see these themes and where we're going. The other two committees are also working on these and have started to develop these themes. I would anticipate coming back in next month with themes from all of the different committees, or whether either in August or September, and looking at those and, you know, facilitating some additional discussion to see where there's commonality, where there's non-commonality, other considerations, and then we'll be moving into more actionable steps. But I'm very pleased with the direction that the committee's going. I like they're simple, they're, you know, easy to follow, and that's where we're headed. And then the last thing Our board is going to get to hear from people on the committees in August. So the livable committee chairman is going to address the board and give a brief report on progress of that committee. And we're hoping that the same thing can happen from this committee as well as the transportation committee. So I wanted people to know that, you know, you're going to get your condensed response taken directly to the board by your member. I think Colleen is on
Yes.
on there. So
Colleen Carr.
we'll work with you to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah, congratulations. So
Okay, well, I think that's where we can. Nice to see you. See you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
That's over.
I think I will.
Thank you. Yeah, I was surprised. I think it went better than I expected. I didn't remember till early yesterday afternoon. But we managed.
Go ahead and end it. We can sit down if you want to have a quick